Okay, what are you doing? Are you interacting with the politicians?
Everybody.
Another minute?
So your job was to...
How you doing?
No. Are you dealing with whatever the assembly, you supporting the assembly person, or are you going out and doing deals on the side?
Support for the assembly person. So
We should, well, as long as they go in order,
So when
yes.
people call, you take the
So we'll do
call,
the roll
whatever they
call, and then I don't know if the
okay,
supervisor's
fine.
going to speak. I don't really know,
direct
but
connect.
this is our
So why do you have to do that from there? Why does it have to go down there?
Because when the assembly people
well, David Freed, and then you would always say council person.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
How's everything? How you
Yes,
doing?
I saw it. Okay.
Oh, did you get my email about solicitor, the mayor? I emailed you, maybe you didn't see it.
I have my open office there days I had to do it.
Are we able to do like a sort of camp near the village at another site, like in the same center, anything? We do. So if kids from slow school want to go to, they can go to one of those. All right. Where do kids from slow school? The ones at the same center. Who goes there?
Where are you meeting up with them?
Ladies and gentlemen, if we could kindly ask you to find your seats.
Judge, how are you?
You can't add another can. No, that's fine. Yeah.
How you doing? David, how you doing?
We're starting. We're going to start with order first.
Once again,
Excuse me, everybody. Welcome to the 2019 Town of Ramapo reorganizational meeting. Before I call the meeting to order, I'm going to ask my Chief of Staff, Mona Montal, to say a few words.
thank you very much, Mr. Supervisor. It's our pleasure to welcome everybody to Town Hall this evening for our reorganization meeting. We would be remiss if we didn't recognize those individuals that diligently work on behalf of our community. You might notice that a lot of them have the same first name. Judge Sherry Eisenpress, Judge Kevin Russo, Judge Thomas Walsh, Judge Dennis Lynch, Judge Vic Alfieri, Judge David Freed from the village of Spring Valley, soon to be from the town of Ramapo. I'd also like to take the personal privilege of recognizing the chairwoman of the Democratic Party for Rockland County, Kristen Zabrowski. With that, Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to turn the meeting back to the supervisor and say thank you for everything you've done for the town of Ramapo and will continue to be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montel. I'll start by asking our Deputy Town Clerk to call the roll.
Sure. Councilman Weissmandel?
Here.
Councilman Rossman? Here. Deputy Supervisor Charles?
Here.
Councilman Wanunu?
Here.
Supervisor Specht?
Here, I'll ask Councilman Wanunu to lead us in the pledge to the flag.
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda, we are excited to have the inauguration of our newest town justice, the Honorable David Freed. I'm going to ask Judge Freed to step up, and I will ask Judge Eisenpress to step up as well and administer the oath of office to Judge Freed. Oh, please. It's required.
All family, everybody.
On our holiday cards.
Years ago that I swore Judge Freed in as a Spring Valley Village Justice, and now we're here to swear him in as the Ramapo Town Justice, the newest Ramapo Town Justice. Just a little background. David graduated from Spring Valley High School, right here, a little local boy. He went on and graduated from Manhattanville College and Cardozo Law School with honors and distinctions and was admitted to the bar in 2005. During and after his years of schooling, David worked as a staff member of the United States Congressman Nita Lowey, ranking member of the U.S. House Appropriations Committee, and as presidential aide to William Jefferson Clinton. In the Clinton administration, David traveled domestically, and if you ask him, he'll tell you he was on Air Force One, just ask him, and internationally with the President and Hillary Clinton as representative of the White House and the United States government. David was elected at the ripe old age of 23 to the Rockland County Legislature, where he served with distinction as an active, progressive Rockland County legislator and as Deputy Majority Leader and Chair of the Legislature's Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security. At the senior citizen age of 30, David was elected to preside over the Spring Valley Justice Court.
With the seniors in the election.
He also presided over the Rockland County Misdemeanor Drug Court and the Specialized Domestic Violence Court, for which he secured over $1 million in federal grants. Not busy enough, David has received numerous public safety certifications in Homeland Security for training, completed in Israel, as well as terrorist threat management certification from Northwestern University, and criminal narcotic interdiction certification from the International Narcotic Interdiction Association. How many of you knew that existed? Tell me. True. He has studied the dynamics of law enforcement from an international perspective with a 2008 visit to London as a guest of the New Scotland Yard, learning about public safety challenges and homeland security operations in the United Kingdom. He's utilized his law degree to teach law at local colleges to undergraduates and in the police academy, as Deputy Village Attorney for the Village of Hilburn, and as legal counsel to Brewer Fire Engine Company No. 1, a pro bono service that he provides to his community's volunteer firefighters. And now he works as the managing partner of the law offices of David Freed. He served in the past on the advisory councils of the Police Hispanic Society, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and the Holocaust Museum and Study Center, a role he holds close to his heart as the grandson of Auschwitz survivors. He has earned numerous citations for his public service from community-based organizations, labor unions, law enforcement agencies, and all levels of government. And I mentioned this when he was sworn in as Spring Valley Justice, but most of you know David ran for Rockland County Executive a few years ago. And while I'm quite sure he would have been fabulous in that job and bring the same skill and diligence that he's brought to the bench, David's loss in that election is in fact a gain for the people of Ramapo, both his clients in his successful growing practice and those he will now serve again as Ramapo Town Justice. I am particularly happy as the presiding judge over the countywide integrated domestic violence court that David is remaining in the justice system, and I'm excited about partnering with him on many of the issues that he and I have discussed over the years and worked together. So without further ado, I will administer the oath that will officially welcome David into the ranks of the Ramapo Town Court system. Raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, David Freed,
I, David Freed,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly affirm
that I will administer justice without respect to persons
that I will administer justice without respect to persons
and do equal right to the poor and to the rich,
and do equal right to the poor and to the rich,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
impartially
discharge
and perform
all the duties
all the duties
incumbent upon me
incumbent upon me
as Justice of the Town of Ramapo Justice Court
as Justice of the Town of Ramapo Justice Court,
under the Constitution and laws of the United States,
under the Constitution and laws of the United States,
the State of New York,
the State of New York,
the County of Rockland,
the County of Rockland,
and the Town of Ramapo.
and the Town of Ramapo.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
So this may take a while. I like to talk, to the chagrin of many a stenographer. But no, I'll be very, very brief. I just want to thank you. I look around the room and I see all these wonderful people that have such a special place in my life. My family and my friends, the staff at my law office, the clerks of the Spring Valley Court who are here. There they are in the back. They're making a scene in the back. And friends and family, and I'm so grateful to have you as part of my life. I didn't write a speech. I wanted to just talk for a brief moment, and then I'll let the meeting go on. But I've been really blessed to do many great things in my life. I have a successful business. I had the blessing of being the designee of my party, running for county executive. And I have a family that I love. My family has been through some pretty significant challenges. I think many of you know that. But many of the people here are the ones that get us through those moments, whether they're difficult or whether they're great. But of all of the things that I've done in my life, I have to tell you, my heart is in the court. There is no feeling that I have experienced in my life more fulfilling than making sure that the system of justice functions the way that it was intended to. And I can't make any promises, except one, that every single case will be decided, as I always have, with intellect and fairness and sensitivity and impartiality. And I'll tell you, in the, I guess, 7 or 8 years that I've been doing a job similar to this in Spring Valley, there have been some very rough moments. There are very difficult cases where I try hard to get into the mind of a defendant that if they don't start to get their life in order, I'm going to read their obituary. And sometimes I do. And it's sad. But then there are all those wonderful cases that make my heart sing. When someone who is addicted from drugs is able to turn a better life and work and raise a family. And sometimes they come back and tell me that they're doing well. I'm very grateful to work in a community of wonderful judges. And Judge Eisenpress, not only a colleague, but one of the closest friends I have. I really love you, Sherry. You are a wonderful person. And I am looking out and I see Judge Walsh and Judge Russo and Judge Alfieri. And have I missed any of the other members of the judiciary? I don't think so. But I want you to know how, and Judge Lynch. Oh, okay, Judge, how dare I? I'm sorry, Judge Lynch. These are wonderful, dedicated members of the judiciary. And in my practice, I get to see them from a different side. But these are people who serve their county and their community and their state with endless dedication. And I'm very grateful that you are here to share the moment with me. And please know that I'm grateful to you, to each of you. And I can't leave the podium without saying a very special thank you to the people of Spring Valley. And the people of Spring Valley were the ones that first trusted me and put a gavel in my hand. And I'm very grateful that you've stood with me. There have been some successes, there have been some failures. That's okay, that happens. But we pick up the pieces and we move along. And the people of Spring Valley have been wonderful to me. And I'm so excited to be able to serve all of Ramapo, from Hilburn and Sloatsburg to Montebello and Suffern and Pomona and New Hempstead, and Wesley Hills and Muncie and New Square and Kaiser and Spring Valley and Chestnut Ridge and Airmont, all of the places. I don't know if I missed one, I apologize, but I will do a good job for you too. So, with that being said, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board, I'm very excited to work with you. And while the courts are independent, please know that you will have a very strong partner in me in doing good things for the town. So with that said, thank you very much.
Congratulations.
David, official picture time. Let's go.
Okay. Let's go. Broke your phone, I'm sorry. Very excited to welcome aboard Judge Freed to the town of Ramapo. I know from appearing before Judge Freed in Spring Valley Court as a lawyer, not as a defendant, but as a lawyer, he was always both fair, respectful, compassionate, but also knew when to apply the law when it was needed to. And we will be very fortunate to have him here in our court. We'll move along to the next item, which is the supervisor's appointment of the deputy supervisor. I'm going to appoint, again, Councilwoman Brendel Charles as my deputy supervisor. Then we'll go on to item 1A, appointment of the, for the town clerk's office, the appointment of the sub-register of vital statistics. There's a resolution to appoint Sharon Osharovitz to that position for 1 year, commencing January 1st and terminating December 31st, 2019. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Now we go to item 2, appointment of the deputies and assistant town attorneys. Mr. Lynch has walked off because we haven't reappointed him yet. No, he already was appointed, so he's good. He was already sworn in. The first item is appointment of Assistant Town Attorney Dennis Lynch.
So moved.
Very good. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. And all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? You can come back up, Dennis.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, with our new Judge Freed, everyone wants to congratulate you. So we can excuse you now, and you can go out, everyone who would like to go with him, because we want to do the appointments, and we don't want you to miss out on everyone saying congratulations, of course. So we'll give you a pass for right now, and you don't have to work tonight before we continue the
We'll take 2 minutes while
appointment.
everybody
Okay?
wants to step out.
Everybody, thank you so much for coming.
Good idea. Oh, sure.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
no,
why I
no,
was
thank
like,
you for coming.
you look like you was ready to go.
We're not
No, no,
offended,
no, no.
we'll both on the same night.
That's why we did it, so everybody
Yeah,
can go.
yeah. The room's going to be empty. That's okay.
Mr. Supervisor, we'd also like to recognize that our fellow legislators are also being installed tonight, and
right.
a lot of our guests are heading over to the legislature for those swearing in, so we'd like to thank them also for coming.
Absolutely, if you'd like to, sure.
We announce the appointment of Alan Berman.
Yeah, I was going to say. It's being drafted.
Never said he wouldn't accept the draft.
No, that's true. That's true.
we can continue now.
Sorry?
I think we can continue now.
Yeah, I just want to wait for Riddell to get up, and then we'll do it. All right, we'll continue now. Our next person to be appointed is somebody who I've had the pleasure to work with for a long time, both in the town and before the town, but this person is now, for the first time, the longest-serving deputy town attorney, and that would be Janice Gittleman. Is there a motion to appoint Janice?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Weissmantel, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried 5-0. Congratulations. And our next attorney is Assistant Town Attorney Beth Finkelstein. Also had the pleasure of working with before coming here and after. And is there a motion to appoint Beth Finkelstein? Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Councilman Wanunu. All in favor? Discussion.
None. None.
I was assuming there was no discussion. I noticed you only said that for Beth. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Now we'll go to our next assistant town attorney. There's a pattern here. We went assistant, deputy, assistant. Now we're going back to deputy. And for the public, whether someone's an assistant or deputy depends on whether they live in the town or out of the town. By law, if you live in the town, you can be a deputy. If you live out of the town, you're an assistant. So this person lives in the town, and it is James Birnbaum. Is there a motion to appoint James Birnbaum as a deputy town attorney?
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Wanunu, second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations, James. And we go back to assistant.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may, Deputy Town Attorney Birnbaum, would you please close the door? Thank you. So we can hear. Thank you.
And we will now go to our newest, but not least, Assistant Town Attorney Alyssa Slater. Is there a motion to appoint
So
Alyssa
moved.
Slater? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossum. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations. And now, sadly, for the first time in, I think, 44 years, there was one name not on this list. And even though he's not on the list, I'm going to recognize Alan Berman for a few moments.
I want to thank this town board. It's 40 years. I want to thank this town board and all the prior town boards for showing faith in allowing me to work for the town of Ramapo Town Attorney's Office. I work with many town attorneys, many deputies, and recently assistants, and it's been a pleasure to work with them. But most important, I was born in this town, I lived in this town, I raised my family in this town, and I worked in this town, and it was an honor to work for the town which you were born and raised. I want to thank this town board and all the prior town boards for giving me the honor to serve the town of Ramapo. Thank you very much.
Forty more.
Alan, it was an honor to work with you, work for you as the deputy town attorney for 20 years, and it was an equally big, if not bigger, honor to have you as my first deputy town attorney for 1 year. And wish it would be longer, but we wish you the very happiest of retirements, and we want to keep seeing you here as much as possible.
But Alan, 13 of your 40 years, I had to put up with you. No, but honestly, you taught me a lot. 6 years on the planning board and then now on the town board. And if anyone wants to know what that model looks like, just look at Alan Berman because he is a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for all your guidance. We could not have gotten here without you, and you will be missed, but I'm sure you'll be around somewhere. We'll shake you out when we need you. Okay, you got it.
I just want to say one more word before we move on to the next item of the agenda. I want to give a hand to all of our town attorneys, the entire town attorney's office and staff. I'm a bit biased having worked there, but I know the quality of the people that work in that office, and I want to just recognize them.
Yes.
We'll move on to item 3, appointments. 3A, appointment of the Deputy Receiver of Taxes, Christian Sampson. Mr. Sampson is not here tonight. He's actually away on vacation. But we will, I'll call for a motion to appoint him as the Deputy Receiver.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries 5 to, anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0. We'll go on to item 3B, which is the appointment of the Director of Emergency Services.
Mr. Supervisor, I believe that the appointment of emergency services is yourself.
That is
So
correct.
therefore, I will ask for a motion to appoint the supervisor for the town of Ramapo, Michael Specht, as the Director of Emergency Services. Do I have a motion? Second. All in favor? Any
Abstain.
opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. And then we'll go to item 4, appointment of chairpersons to boards and commissions. The first is to appoint Richard Weinberger, Esquire, as,
You have the,
Deputy.
oh, I missed that, I'm sorry. So excited being appointed director. We'll go to item 3C, appointment of deputy directors. We have a motion to appoint Frederick Brand, Superintendent of Highways, Ian Smith, building inspector, or deputy building inspector, and Captain Martin Riley from the police department as the deputy directors of emergency services for the year 2019.
supervisor is the newbie. The chief doesn't serve in this role at all?
No, I don't know if the chief's ever been the director, or he
Yeah,
designated
picks.
Captain Riley?
He picks.
Very good. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Wanunu, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0. Now we'll go to appointing the chairman of the Ethics Commission. He served in this capacity for a number of years. Richard Weinberger, Esquire. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Wanunu, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0. We'll go on to the appointment of the planning board chairperson. There's a resolution to reappoint Sylvan Klein. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0.
I abstain.
4 to 0, 1 abstention. And now we'll go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Charlene Weaver has served for many years as chairwoman as well, and been on the board for many years. Is there a motion to appoint Charlene Weaver? A motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? 4 to 0, 1 abstention. We'll go on to item 5A, appointment of Craig Long as town historian. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Discussion? Any, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0. We'll go on to item 6A, designation of official depositories for the year 2019. And, pardon me, I have a proposed motion to designate Key Bank, TD Bank, Sterling Bank, Capital One Bank, Citibank, and JP Morgan Chase as the official banks for the depositories for the town of Ramapo for the year 2019. Is there a
Are
motion?
these banks do we actually use, or?
Well, we use Sterling, we've used them all at different times. It gives us the authorization, if as needed, to open or close an account. Is there a motion to designate these banks? Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0. Item 6B is to designate the Rockland County Times as the official newspaper of the town of Ramapo for the year 2019.
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5 to 0. Item 6C is to designate the town board members as the Town of Ramapo Police Commissioners for the year 2019, with the supervisor acting as chairman of the Police Commission. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5 to 0. And then we have item 6D, which is to set the town board meeting schedule for the year 2019. Designate as the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m., and the Thursdays before the fourth meeting of the month At 9, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. The town board regular meetings will be the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m., and the police commission and general town matter meetings can be held Thursday before the fourth meeting of the month at 9 a.m. And in addition, regular scheduled workshops shall be held at 5:30 on the Monday preceding the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month. Everybody got that? And I know already there are some holidays that will conflict that we'll have to down the road
We've
adjust
been
for the holidays.
combining these workshops, haven't we?
Well, we've done that, but we've also done them separately. My preference is if we can go with scheduling workshops on Mondays, regular meetings on Wednesdays, I think it'll work better. The meetings will run a bit smoother, but it's up to the board.
Let's start off with it.
Let's try it. Very good. Is there a motion? Yes. Motion by Councilman Rossman, second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go on to item 7, which is adoption of the 2019 salary schedule for the town of Ramapo CSEA employees, non-union employees, highway CSEA employees, PBA, Superior Officers Association, Code Enforcement Officers, and boards and commissions.
Moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go on now to, bear with me 1 minute, gotta get the rest of the, there we go. We'll go on to item 7B, setting of mileage rates, meal rates, attending school, seminars, and other related business for 2019. There's a resolution proposed that the IRS standard mileage rate shall be used for the time of such travel, plus tolls and parking fees. For meals, reimbursement shall be the IRS per diem meal rates. Any discussion? I'm sorry, is there a motion?
Moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Item 7C is a motion to authorize the supervisor to use a town vehicle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'll abstain from this motion.
Moved.
Oh,
I need a second.
No, there was.
Yes, okay. Move second. All in favor? Any opposed?
Abstention.
Okay, one abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll go on to item 8, which is acceptance of consultants' proposals. The first one is for the acceptance of the proposal of Frederick P. Clark Associates. They've been our planning consultants for a number of years, and they've submitted a proposal. There's a resolution to accept it. Is there a motion to accept the proposal?
Moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go to item 8B. We have an amended resolution because there was a typographical error. So this is a motion to hire Goldman Attorneys, PLLC, as special counsel to the assessor. We've been retaining Goldman Attorneys, Paul Goldman specifically, as our special tax counsel for the assessor for a number of years. He's been very effective at a number of issues. I think actually when the assessor speaks later, we could actually discuss some of them possibly. Is there a motion to retain Goldman Attorneys? Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Next item is to retain the firm of Lawrence Brown and Company as our tax certiorari auditors. And we have a proposal. Is there a motion?
Moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And then we'll go on to Valuation Plus.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Supervisor.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Wanunu,
Bring this up later. It's not an effective one.
can we, on the certiorari, can we correct the record to have the letter from
Somebody just contact them.
Lawrence Brown directed to Town Attorney, Mr. Lynch?
I'm sorry, you're talking about 8C?
Yeah.
Just basically put it up to them.
Can we change
They
it?
just need to update it.
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay.
We'll just ask them, they sent a letter to the
Right.
wrong person in the Town
Okay.
Attorney's
Can we,
office. Someone's not
someone
there.
notify him and
So
let him know?
we will, we'll tell him to address it
Okay.
to Mr. Lynch. That's fine. So is there a motion to,
I think think we did it.
We did.
Yeah, we
Did
did.
we,
Can we change
did
that?
we vote on that? We voted on.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
And we'll also just ask that the resolution, just note that the resolution on 8B would be the
Would
revised,
be revised, exactly.
corrected
Okay,
resolution.
good call. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Then we'll go on to item 8D, Valuation Plus, which is to prepare trial appraisals to defend certiorari actions. And we have a proposal. Is there a motion to retain them? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And we'll now go on to item 8E, SCAR Consultant, FJ Rella and Company, and that's also for defending SCAR, which are small claim assessment review actions challenging people's assessments. We have a proposal. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Rossman, second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Now we'll go to item 8F, Audio Services LLC. This is by our audio-video consultant who is, I believe, filming us as we speak. So if we don't want that to get shut off, I suggest we retain him again. Yes, please. Oh, it's incorrect. Yes. He did that to see if we would notice it without him here.
I'd like the town board to please make an amendment to this resolution to reflect that the amount should not exceed $55,000 capped for the year 2019 from January 1st to December 31st.
Thank you very much, Ms. Montal. So moved. So there's a motion to approve the amended resolution, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0.
I would just like to note that the number that is amended is what was reflected within the budget.
That's right. That's right. It was a typo in the resolution. I think we used last year's resolution, which was,
Al Herman's fault.
we can blame him now. We'll go on to item 8G, which is to
Went over
retain
everybody's head.
Rockland and Orange reporting as the official zoning board of appeals stenographer for 2019. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. All in favor? I'm sorry, discussion? None. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go on to item H, Westerveld and Rhea to retain them, LLP, as our special environmental counsel. We have a proposal. Is there a motion to retain Kimberly Ray? Motion by Councilman Rossman. Second by anybody? Second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0.
Oh, he wasn't looking. It's good. No.
Let's do it after. We'll do it. Let's do it. Yeah, no, we'll talk later. Our next item is 8I to retain as our public affairs consultant, Philip Teasy, for the year 2019. And do we have a motion to retain Phil? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And then item J is appointment of special counsel on utility projects to retain Goldman attorneys. Yeah, this looks like an error.
I'd like to ask that the town board amend the resolution.
It is Lewis and Greer, the resolution, the retainer agreement. So- We did, yeah, Goldman is counsel, but not special counsel for utilities.
We would like you to accept the agreement of Lewis and Greer at an amount of $210 per hour, as listed in the resolution.
Is there a motion to that effect, as amended? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman.
One more item on there. I think it has
Oh,
an
sure.
agreement that the supervisor's authorized to sign with the principals of Lewis and Greer.
You know,
Yes.
there's no wonder why they let Alan Berman go, you know.
Money because Mr. Schindler did not have a proposal on my last day of work.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I would also like to ask that the agreement, retainer agreement, to reflect that it's to be signed by the town supervisor and not Mr. Schindler. That's
Very good.
required.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll have to have that amended.
Okay.
Very good. So there's a motion, on the amended resolution by Deputy Supervisor
Yeah.
Charles, second by Councilman Wanunu. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0. Mr. Rossman is momentarily absent. He
Okay.
had to step out, Councilman Rossman. We'll go on to item 8K, the appointment of Jeffrey Welsh as our environmental consultant. Mo- Too many errors, come on.
Amend the resolution to reflect that it says in the first paragraph, educational functions for the year 2019 as opposed to 18.
Well, no, I think actually this is it's referencing last year's resolution to retain him for 2018, and now it's wherefore we'll retain him again for 2019. I'm assuming, that's the way I read it.
Okay.
I'm not sure why it was drafted that way, but that's what it says. So
Retain.
either way, we're retaining him for 2019.
Got it.
Is there a motion? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Weismandel. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 4-0, sorry. Item L, which is appointment of the law firm of Farrick, Nugent, McCartney as special counsel for Police Department Labor Relations. There's a proposal. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Wanunu, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And then the last item under this item is extension of the agreement with Brown and Weinreb as our legislative and regulatory representatives. And there's a proposal, call for a motion to extend that agreement.
Move.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And that concludes the reorganizational meeting. The town board meeting will, we completed the workshop, so the town board meeting will commence at 7 p.m. as scheduled. We did have an executive session item, so,
You can if you want to now.
can we do that now
do
and
it
not
now.
have to,
Executive session, and
take
that would
time
be
later?
with regard to pending litigation or pending.
We have we have three matters.
Personnel.
2 litigation matters and 1 employment-related personnel matter. Very good. Then I'll call for a motion to enter into executive session on those items. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles.
What
Second.
happened?
Did we adjourn the first one?
Did we adjourn?
No, we didn't.
No,
No, I don't think we have to, right?
well, no, you're still in your public meeting, you're adjourning in
Right.
executive session.
So we'll adjourn
After executive
after
session,
the-
you come back in public meeting, then you'll adjourn that public meeting.
Very good.
Nothing
Second
will
by
be
Councilman Rossman. Discussion, motion, all in favor?
Nay.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? All right, thank you. We're now in executive session.
Okay.
I'll ask the town board, the personnel director, the chief of staff, deputy attorney, town attorney Birnbaum, assistant attorney Lynch to remain in the room with us. We had like a, I don't even remember we had a class that covered it. You didn't have criminal justice? No, we didn't. Back then, we didn't. We went to school in,
That was in the stone.
You had people who experienced
exactly.
Back in the stone age.
Flintstones.
We had the cars with no wheels.
That's right, we didn't use our feet, yeah.
Did we adjourn yet?
Yeah, we're gonna do that now. Okay, this time we concluded the reorganization meeting. I'll take a motion to adjourn that meeting.
Move.
Moved by Councilman Weisbrandl, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And now we'll start the special town board meeting. First item on the agenda is a public hearing on a local law to authorize a real property. Is this correct? The agenda's incorrect. Another typo. We have a, we had a we had a public hearing scheduled for today, didn't we, on the disability exemption? Isn't that for tonight?
No,
We're setting a date. My mistake.
That's what I thought today was.
Give me a moment. You have the calendar? What about when is the date then? If we could look, or I'll ask the deputy clerk, when did we set the date for the disability exemption law?
Actually, tonight.
That's what I thought. So it's not on it.
So you should move to waive your rules,
We have to.
and there is a public schedule,
Right, public hearing scheduled for tonight, correct.
Public notice, this has been noticed.
No, that's all fine. Yeah,
It's not on the.
it's not on the agenda. So I'm going to call upon Mr. Shedler, our assessor. Why don't we'll start, we'll have first reading, I'll ask Mr. Lynch for the public hearing on the disability exemption local law. Could you tell us if we have the required notices, if we're able to legally proceed?
I'm advised that the notices have been sent out with regard to the local law. This deals with the issue of when the March 1st tax status date is passed. This proposed legislation, local law, is to prospectively, not retroactive.
No, I'm sorry, I think I'm the wrong one.
Here it is,
This was on,
tax exemption.
correct, on
I'm sorry, forgive me. Yes, it was noticed, forgive me.
Absolutely, that's what I thought.
It was given proper notice, and I think our assessor can talk about that one.
We should read the proposed local law into the record.
Yes.
Okay. What happened?
Notice was hereby given by the town board of the town of Ramapo that pursuant to the provisions of town law of the state of New York, a public hearing will be held at 7:00 p.m. prevailing time at town of Ramapo, 237 Route 59, Suffolk, New York, 10901, on the 3rd of January 2019, to consider the adoption of a local law entitled Local Law Amending the Local Law Number 3, 1998, as amended tax exemption for persons with disabilities to allow deductions for all medical and prescription drug expenses not reimbursed or paid by insurance, which local law shall be provided as follows. A local law amending local law number 3, 1998, is amended tax exemption for persons with disabilities to allow deductions for all medical and prescription drug expenses not reimbursed or paid by insurance, be it enacted by the town board of town of Ramapo as follows. Section 1, add a new section, section 253-32A, medical and drug expenses, to read as follows. Applicants may deduct from their income all medical and prescription drug expenses which are not reimbursed or paid by insurance. 2, effective date. This local law shall become effective immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
Thank you, Ms. Montel. Now we'll go back to Mr. Shedler. If you could explain to us what this would involve.
Sure. This is for persons who are physically disabled. They will receive an exemption similar to that of the limited income senior exemption, and the deduction for medical expenses will be similar to the senior exemption. So it just basically cleans up the language in the bill. It's the senior exemption, again, has the similar provision to allow for these medical deductions.
And right now, we currently have an exemption for people with disabilities?
Yes, we just don't have the provision for the deduction for medical. And what we're looking to do is what we've been doing over the last several months is to make sure there's consistency in all this legislation that relates to exemptions, whether it be veterans, as we had a hearing here several months ago, making sure that all the towns and villages have consistent, laws.
Thank you. Would you be able to tell us if somebody has an eligible disability, what would the amount of their exemption be?
It all depends on their income. Their income is also, it's tied to the same table that a limited income senior person would qualify for. And these are all established by the town.
So what this law, if we enacted, would change would be, let's say a person has a disability, they have an income of $70,000, but they spent $20,000 on medical expenses. That would come off their income for eligibility purposes for the exemption.
Yeah, and it's right now it's more in the $30,000 range.
Right.
So and it does make a difference. The difference of the medical deduction, as persons can have thousands and thousands of dollars. And yeah, I mean, because these expenses were not deducted on their tax return, the provision was to enable those either senior or now in this instance disabled individuals to take that deduction off their income. And these are all low-income amounts, by the way.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, this would benefit people that are low-income disabled people.
Yeah, it's roughly under $38,000. I mean, there's a whole schedule that starts at 50% and goes down to 5%. And again, these are low-income amounts, very low-income amounts.
50% exemption.
It would be the maximum you would get if your income
Oh, I
was.
see. Be a 50% exemption.
Yeah,
Of the town tax.
yeah, for the town tax. All the other, the project that we've also been going through is ensuring that all the other levels of government have similar legislation, or at least have an option to go into that legislation.
Do we know if either of the school districts have adopted this?
We presented the school districts with all the different options, and as of right now, they don't have the medical part of it. And we're in the process right now of contacting, as a follow-up to everyone, to see if they're interested in putting that in. Otherwise, when we review an application, we have to review it with the medical, then without the medical.
I'll ask you one more question, and if you don't have the answer, I understand. I'm just throwing this out. Ballpark, could you give us a ballpark estimate about how many people in the town would be affected by this?
It's very few people. It's less than 100 people.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Any questions from my fellow members of the board?
Actually, it was nice.
Then I'll open it up to the public if anyone from the public wishes to speak about this proposed local law. Ms. Muniz?
Hi, Deborah Muniz, 5 Rose Hill Road. I just had a question, which probably maybe Mr. Shedler can answer. When I saw this, it made me keep in mind my own personal experience when my mom was very ill. And the question I had was really, and I think you implied it, but I didn't see it written, was are these expenses that are not already being taken off of the income taxes? That was my first question, is like, how do you know which expenses have already been accounted for in terms of income taxes versus, what comes before the assessment board? And then the nature of these kinds of expenses, who determines like what the categories are, what would be eligible, because you can have all manner of like personal hygiene things that could come up that could very rationally be construed, but it could also lead it could sort of open the barn door to all sorts of abuse. So I think the question is like, how well defined are the categories of expenses? That would be what I would want to hear.
Thank you. I'll see if anyone else has any other comments, and then if not, we'll close public participation, and we'll ask Mr. Shedler if he could give us any further information.
Motion to close?
Well, but let me see if anyone else wishes to speak. No one else. Motion to close the public comment. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Very good. Then I'll go back to Mr. Shedler. There were two questions that were raised. I think the first one you did address, are these expenses that would be deducted normally from someone's taxes?
Yeah, we require the income tax return and proof, and then they would give supplemental proof, which would have to be from a physician, and in order for them to qualify.
So if somebody's claiming $10,000 in expenses, they need a doctor's letter or something?
They need to show substantial proof, including the payment for those services, not just there's a bill.
Right.
So there has to be actual, we get receipts. We get CVS, CVS bills right from CVS showing that these expenses were taken during the period, the previous year.
Very good.
So we have documentation on all income levels. On all income, it's fully documented. And the medical information, because of the stringent laws, federal laws, we're no longer allowed to keep them in our file. So it's a little problematic for us. We have to review it, and then we have to discard of the information because it's a violation of the person's rights. So.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Shedler. Anything further from the board from Mr. Shedler? If not, if we're prepared to vote on this tonight, we need to waive our 24-hour rule. First, would anybody like to make a motion to waive our rule that resolutions be provided 24 hours in advance to the board? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, seconded by Councilman Rossman. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? The rule is hereby waived. And anyone wish to make a motion on whether we should adopt this local law? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Wanunu. Any discussion? I think from what Mr. Shedler said, this would benefit, I think, up to about 100 or less people that qualify income-wise and disability-wise. So I think it's a very appropriate thing that we do. And all in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Shedler. Very good. So that's approved. We'll go on to item 1, acceptance of the minutes of the special meeting held November 20th, 2018.
I'm going to abstain because I wasn't here.
Okay. Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Well, no, I don't think that was supposed to be on. The public, scheduling of a public hearing, we never got any backup on that for the,
No, you're supposed to set a date.
well, okay, but we,
The proposed local law is not available right now. That's what I was trying to explain before.
Right.
If the board would like to set a date for that, or just wait for the local law.
well, is there any harm, and I'll ask, maybe Mr. Shedler knows, is there any harm in we wait until the meeting later in the month when we have the written proposed local law
No,
for that?
there's no way the law becomes effective we don't, effective as of the date that you approve it. So, if someone were to come in now, they would have to then go under the whole process of going through the state legislature.
And because the March 1st date is not upon us, so this would be prospective, so you would have no harm by waiting to your next meeting.
There's no,
I would propose to do that as we don't have it in writing, we don't have a written proposed local law. Is that your recommendation?
Absolutely.
Does anybody disagree, or?
No.
Very good. Then we'll do that, we'll ask that that be done for the next meeting. So going back to the approval of the minutes of the special meeting on November 20th, there was a motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Somebody second the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Wanunu. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone
Abstain.
opposed? 4-0, 1 abstention to approve those minutes. Go to item 2, the town attorney agenda. Mr. Lynch, if you could tell us 2A, 2019 fuel agreements.
If I may, Mr. Supervisor, we covered this during the workshop session. This is the standard fuel agreements we recommend to be considered for approval. It's the, provided for the not-for-profits with a 20% administrative fee.
Very good. Any discussion by the board? Call for a motion.
Provide this gasoline that they pay.
They pay for it.
They buy it
We
from us.
provide the facility.
Yeah, they buy it from us.
They have to have a ring that is attached to the car that calculates how much, and then our finance department bills.
And we charge a 20% fee above that. I believe, for
And we
the
get paid?
cost. Mhm.
Yes.
And do we get paid?
Yes, absolutely.
Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Rossman, second by Councilman Weissman. No discussion on the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Mr. Lynch, we'll go to item 2AB, dog control services for
This is a
villages.
continuation of the service the town has for draw control for various villages specified in the resolution. The amount of hours that is billed, the rate of $15 per hour, plus the actual cost of overtime or call-out pay, we would recommend it be considered for approval.
And I'll ask that you amend the resolution because it says 47 instead of 50, as we discussed during the workshop. Very good. Is there a motion?
So I just one quick question. So basically, we have people on staff that we're paying, and they're only paying if they use the service?
Correct. The villages, when they call somebody out, they call us we then get reimbursed for what hours they have.
Wouldn't it make sense more to go into some kind of a contract like we do with other services?
You could do an IMA also, but this is also a way of approaching it.
Any,
IMA is intermunicipal agreement.
No, yeah, I understand it, but that would sound to like make a lot more sense to do.
That's something we can look at for the future. I think for now, this is for Pomona, Chestnut Ridge, Kaiser, Sloatsburg, and Hillburn. They've asked us that we continue to provide the services.
We could always do an IMA at a later
Yeah.
meeting if you wanted
Well,
to.
let me just say that either we have to provide it,
Uh-huh.
or it has to do with there are
Yeah.
different types of control. They can do this themselves and hire some, but it has to be done.
No, I understand that, but the only thing is that we're paying somebody basically to be on call, so if they're not being used,
We're
they're...
not paying them on call.
No, this is our dog control
It's
officer.
our dog control.
She works for us
No, I understand that,
full-time.
but, so we're paying somebody full-time to be at the ready, but we're only charging them if they use it.
Right, we need a dog control officer.
I understand
We're
that,
paying her
but I
anyhow.
think that the town would benefit more if we separated out the fees, by basically charging them a fee as opposed to only them using us when they need it. They're benefiting a lot more out of this agreement. We're kind of getting hurt in that agreement. No, just an IMA, a regular IMA agreement would make sense in this situation. You have this with snowplows. It's not like we don't,
No, it's a different type of-
I understand it's a
We're not
different
making a
service.
profit
but-
off of it, but we're getting
I-
paid back for the cost, the hourly rate of the dog control officer.
Only at the time that they're being used.
But we have to pay her anyhow for us.
No
We pay her
building is gonna
full-time
go
to
into an
be-
agreement with us if they're not going to use the service.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying whatever it is that this cost is, it should probably be divided up in some kind of a category as opposed to Ramapo holding on to the brunt of this fee. We're paying an employee, right? They're only gonna reimburse us for time
But
used.
the other time she's working within the unincorporated town, if there's a dog loose in Muncie or whatever, she goes and takes care of it. If there's a dog loose in Chestnut Ridge, she goes to Chestnut Ridge and it takes her 2 hours, and Chestnut Ridge pays us, for the 2 hours.
I
You get paid back.
understand
understand
what you're saying, but
I know.
I think for the future, we need to change this.
All
This
right.
is not, if you want to move forward.
I can certainly look into it and report back to the
Fine.
board.
Okay, please.
Is there a motion? I'll make the motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion, all in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go to item 2C, Mr. Lynch.
If I may, Mr. Supervisor, the board, New York State allows us to contract with agencies that do the work the town could do. There's a list of agencies here, not-for-profit agencies. Town Attorney's Office has reviewed what they're requested. We're recommending approval by the board for the year 2019.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Has this number changed since last year?
I don't know that. I'm not,
This is what you discussed in your budget. These are the items, the contract community agencies. You went through each and every one of them. They requested more in most instances, but these are the numbers in which you gave to them. I double-checked this with the supervisor and his administrative staff, as well as with Mr. Lynch during this week, to ensure that these numbers were the numbers that were reflected.
Went line by line with each one. That's correct.
What's involved with preparing these contracts?
They're standard contracts. Right? There's no new organization on here. But every one of these organizations
We've been dealing with for
has
years,
an existing
yeah.
contract. They have to come in, they have to provide audited financials, and they have to give a record they have to sign the contract. Then the supervisor signs the contract. Then they have, if they need to meet with Mr. Lynch, they do. And if not, they get paid.
Anything further? Anybody have a motion? Yes. Motion by Councilman Ross to approve, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go now to item 2D, Section 8 inspections.
if I may, Mr. Supervisor, of the board, Ramapo Housing Authority has asked the town to conduct 500 Section 8 expenses. The sum is $35,000. If there's any additional inspections above that, 500 is $70 per inspection. The town attorney's office recommends approval.
Is this a mandated number, or did we
No.
negotiate this stuff?
This was a negotiated number which has been ongoing throughout the years. I believe Deputy Supervisor Charles was involved at one point in time with the Ramapo Housing Authority. We recently appointed a new member. This just about covers our expenses.
Does it?
What?
Does it cover?
Just about.
Just about.
$70 sounds a little low.
Takes them about an hour to do each inspection.
Not
Plus-
even, like about 45 minutes.
Plus travel,
We don't incorporate the travel in that
scheduling.
cost, scheduling neither, just the cost of the actual inspection. That's never been incorporated.
Maybe it should be.
Okay. Can,
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried 5-0. We'll go to item 2E, which is to retain a consultant for the assessor's office. We have a proposal from Gar Associates to implement a comprehensive assessment plan. Do we have an actual number?
No, that Gar Associates, I think, is 2F.
What am I doing? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped
No,
2E.
I think
My
E's
mistake.
missing. I don't have
Oh, it's
E either.
missing in the package. Yeah,
Missing in the package.
that is
It's being
correct.
pulled, Mr. Supervisor.
Then we will pull 2E.
2E is pulled.
Which one we
We're
pulling?
pulling.
2E,
What about 2E?
E is,
Consultant assessor's office.
assessor's office.
Assessor's office.
go ahead, Mr. Shedler is here to speak about.
I'll ask Mr. Shetler to address that.
We don't have that.
Not the 2F, the next one.
So this is in a consultant, which is Hudson Valley Operations Management Consulting. For a long time, we've utilized Bernie Kushner. Bernie Kushner is going to be working with Hudson Valley. Bernie Kushner is not able to give us as many hours as he normally is. Bernie Kushner is a retired engineer in charge of all utility assessments for New York City. He retired from New York City. He's been working with us, and he's been an invaluable asset to the town. Mr. Kushner is unable to give us as many hours as we want, and we have recognized a number of Con Ed and Orange and Rockland assets that over the last year have added inventory and upgraded inventory, so we feel necessary to go out and look at every one of those assets, and they're throughout the entire town. And I think it's going to be extremely beneficial this year for all our utility values.
And this enables you to do an accurate assessment.
Yeah, they actually have to go out and look at the mechanical machinery versus the valuation of a traditional valuation that we may do in-house.
Evaluation of utilities is extremely unique. It's not like commercial residential. It requires a real specialist.
What are we expecting the cost to be?
No more than $25,000.
Is it Goldman?
Did it go, I think it was on.
It's
the-
2F, it's
Yeah,
mislabeled.
you know,
It's not 8B?
No, it's
No, but it
2F.
was in there. I don't know where it
2F.
ended up.
yeah.
You have it?
2F.
I don't have it.
Yeah, you do.
2F we have. We don't have then
I don't have it.
we don't have F and G.
I'm talking about
Correct, you're
Hudson
correct.
Valley
Councilman-
Operations
Councilman Westman
Management.
is correct. It's 2F. It should have been 2AF. It's 2F. We have the resolution.
You have it?
Yeah, it's under 2F in your package.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was there. It's just in the, oh, you know what? It's on twice. It's on at the end of the town attorney's
It's in the wrong
agenda,
place in the back.
consultant assessor's office.
The wrong place in the package.
Yeah.
That's correct. It's in twice.
I didn't
Only
put, I didn't put the package together.
No, we don't-
Mr. Berman did.
We're going to blame Alan for this, too.
That's why he was let go?
Yeah, that's why he's gone. Right, so that's right. We discussed this before in the workshop.
Yeah.
$75 an hour, capped at $25,000 a year.
Bernie Kushner still works for Hudson Valley?
He's going to be working with Hudson Valley. And Bernie Kushner's,
Was he with them before?
no, he was separated, but we need to have somebody who's going to be able to work more hours.
That's what he's like.
Bernie? Depending on his relationship with New York City, he's waiting on that, because he does work for New York City as a consultant, because he's retired. So he's kind of letting us know. He has a little more limited availability because of a lot of reasons.
Any further questions, Mr. Shedler? If not, I'll call for a motion. Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Shedler. Sorry for the confusion. We'll go now to 2F is being polled, I'm told. Is that correct, or is that back on? 2AF. Gar Associates. We're pulling that. We're going to pull 2AF, and we'll go to finally 2AG, Extension Amendment of Contract. We discussed this in the executive session. I think we need to make a motion. There's a resolution. Is there a motion to extend and amend the contract that was discussed in executive session?
Yeah.
Motion by Councilman Wanunu. Second by anybody?
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried 5-0. Now we'll go on to settlement of claims. Mr. Lynch, we discussed these claims in
Yes.
the executive session.
The first claim with Fagig deals with the sewer backup. The amount of expenses are in excess of $10,000. We're recommending settlement of $10,000 in that particular claim.
Very good. I think we discussed this fairly thoroughly. Is there a motion? Motion by Councilman Wanunu. Seconded by anybody? Deputy Supervisor Charles, discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We'll go to item 2.
Yeah, 2B2 is also a claim by a family. They've had two separate incidents. Each of the claims, as I discussed in executive session, I believe the town has liability. These claims will be subject that the town pays no more than its standard deductible of $50,000 per claim, and the rest will be paid for by the insurance company.
And again, we discussed this at length in the executive session. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Councilman Wanunu, seconded by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Carried 5-0.
If I may, Mr. Supervisor, 2B3 is the last item for litigation settlements. It deals with another sewer backup claim. The claim was in excess of $35,000. We recommend it be settled for that amount of money, which we believe is appropriate.
And that's within our deductible.
Within our deductible, yes.
Any questions? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve by Councilman Wanunu, seconded Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Now we'll go to item 2C, settlement of certiorari actions.
If I may, Mr. Supervisor, 2C1 deals with an application for a matter that did not have a prior C of O before. It has a C of O. It now qualifies to be fully tax exempt. We recommend that the resolution be adopted.
That's a recommendation of your office.
It is so.
Is there a motion? Motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion on the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. Go to 2C2.
This is another one we're requesting the town board favorably act upon, 100% exemption. Mr. Berman had provided me verbally with the backdrop. The town attorney's office had looked at this particular matter and believes that the exemption is appropriate. I would ask the board to consider favorably this resolution.
And again, this is your office's recommendation.
100%.
Any motion by Deputy Supervisor Charles, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Carries 5-0. We'll now move into 2D, which is adoption of a multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan.
The famous DMA, the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000, requires a periodic update every 5 years by the town in partnership with the county. The county has looked at this particular plan. Our professionals have from the town viewpoint. We're recommending simply that the town indicates the plan's been reviewed, and we recommend the town board favorably act upon the resolution.
Any discussion?
Does this have any impact on the responsibility or obligations on the town?
My understanding and my opinion is it does not. It simply just reaffirms what has already been an existing obligation of the town.
Thank you.
Motion
Move.
by Councilman Weissman, seconded. Deputy Supervisor Charles, discussion on the motion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. And we did now we're up to item 2E, adoption of traffic control. I'm going to ask Chief of Staff Montel just to specify which signs we're talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. What this is, if I could explain for a moment, the supervisor appointed a traffic study committee, internal one, as well as we've met a few times with some of the public, which we're going to continue to do. You've appointed Councilman Weissmandl to be on that committee. We've met approximately once a week, have gone over a variety of different traffic studies that have been approved and reviewed by the town board in conjunction with Mr. Galante from Frederick P. Clark. There are a variety of recommendations that the town board has previously had in front of them. However, we're going to recommend, and I'm going to present to the clerk, the official maps which the committee has reviewed. For some reason, I guess because they were in color, they were not included yet in the packet. However, I'm going to ask you to approve, as per the maps, on the locations on the maps, on the following streets: Augusta Avenue, Manor Drive, Neal Road, Dover Terrace, West Maple Avenue, Cloverdale Lane at Remsen Avenue, Hempstead Road area, a variety of different places, Lindcrest Drive area, Kings Point Lane, North Saddle River Road near Lancet Court, Maple Avenue at Muncie Boulevard, as shown on the maps: 6, 17, 18, 28, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 29, 30, and 32, which will be on file in the clerk's office. We will also put this up on our website. It's a variety of different traffic signals, and what does that mean is it could be a stop sign, a yield sign, a different lane, an extra turning lane, a crosswalk, things that we were able to do. We'll call them the low-hanging fruit, which we hope will improve traffic safety as well as traffic flow. And I know that we have a taskmaster before us, Councilman Weissmandl, who's insisted that we move forward in a productive way. I'd like to mention and thank the Chief of Police, who's actively been involved in this committee, the our planning department, our building department, our highway department, and I would turn it over to Councilman Weissmandl for further comment.
Thank you, Chief of Staff Mantel. Mr. Supervisor, for the benefit of the board, I'd like to briefly run through this list. I don't think I'll get all of it, but I'd like to just give the board a flavor of what we are referring to. Augusta Avenue intersects with Grove Street. It's a very steep street, Grove, coming down. It comes out on a slope, and cars coming up or down don't always see the oncoming traffic coming out of Augusta. The recommendation is signage, warning of an upcoming intersection on the east and west side of Grove coming up and down, and a stop sign coming out of Augusta onto Grove, and some striping that'll get cars to stop on the way out of Augusta, and cars from Grove to yield and be aware of oncoming traffic. Manor Drive is a U-shaped street at the center, at the top of the hill of Blauvelt. It comes in and out on Blauvelt. There has been a lot of complaints from the buses and even local traffic of cars parking on the two corners at the intersection. This is a recommendation for no parking signs at both intersections. Neal Road at the intersection of Ellis Parkway and at the intersection of Fanley, as Neal Road becomes very wide where it intersects. It comes into Fanley and it makes a left turn to Paikin. It's a variety of striping that creates a turning lane for right and left turns. It also has no parking signs on either side of the street. At the corners of Fanley and Ellis, there is a shul at that corner that has cars parking at these intersections and creating gridlock and interference, and this will hopefully clear that up. Dover Terrace on the turn coming from Carlton Road, working way up Dover Terrace. Again, there's a house of worship, and when they have weekday services, there is cars parked on either side. The recommendation was to make one side of the street no parking. I believe this is an old recommendation that we are going to implement now. West Maple Avenue area at the intersections of Laurie Lane, King's Sands Point, and I believe Miriam Lane. It's interchanging some yield signs to stop signs, the same with Cloverdale at Remsen. That whole area actually has multiple intersections coming out onto Maple Avenue at certain points, and many of them have yield signs, and the police has recommended cars come sticking out into the intersection. This will create a stop and then they'll move into the intersection and hopefully make it safer for the cars traveling through. The same with Hempstead Road area is when you come up Eckerson Road towards 45, you make a left on Hempstead Road. The first there's a number of small streets, Seabird, Faced, and I'm missing one. Again, there's either a yield sign or no sign. Cars inch out into Hempstead Road, and this will have striping and stop signs, which will hopefully make it safer. Linkrest Drive area is a variety of stop signs and no parking signs. The town highway department has actually done a test run with paper signs to try to clear up some of the spillover parking coming from the shuls on Rocher Road and within the neighborhood. And they've worked with I believe along with the chief of staff, with the neighbors, and they've come up with a plan that's on the map will be in the clerk's office. Kings Point Lane is is a street around some Briarcliff to West Maple. Again, it has the no parking at the intersection of Maple and no parking at the intersection of Briarcliff. North Saddle River Road near Lancet Court is another situation where there's two recommendations. One has the shul at the intersection of Lancet Court. It is down the block from the Brewer Fire Department and Atzala. It is constantly used for pass-through. It has striping and no parking. There's also a very wide shoulder, and cars tend to park on different angles. We're recommending there's a 9 to 11-foot wide shoulder. We're recommending striping for actual parking spots, parallel parking spots. Last but not least is Maple Avenue at Muncie Boulevard, and this is a slew of recommendations, including no parking, stopping, and standing signs along the intersection of Muncie Boulevard and Maple Avenue from the corner of the synagogue property, wrapping around from the east to west and then south towards Sunrise. It'll also add additional signs on Maple Avenue past the yeshiva at the intersection of Acer Court, all the way east up to the corner of Jeffrey. That will encompass the new commercial building that came there and the shul at the corner of Jeffrey. It also is a recommendation that the committee has looked at, and it's been on the books for a long time, to create gates, guardrails from the intersection of Sunrise to the intersection of Maple Avenue, going north down towards Maple Terrace and south, or actually west, down to Maple Terrace and east up to Acer Court and beyond, to protect from pedestrians that tend to roam out into open traffic. This is forcing them to the intersection, to the crosswalks. This is actually a conversation that started a way while back when there was an unfortunate tragedy at that location, and this is meant to make it a safer walking community within that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Weissman. I think that was very helpful to the board and to the public to hear the changes that will be made, the improvements. And again, I'd like to thank you even more for the effort, the hard work, and the thoughtfulness you put into this committee and the traffic improvements. So we need to have a motion to adopt. Actually, I think we should make the motion.
I'll move.
Motion by Councilman Weissmandel, second by Councilman Wanunu. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carried 5-0. We'll go on, item 2F, we already did, and we'll go on to personnel. Item 3, we will have standing in for Ms. Condon is Ms. Montel. We discussed this earlier in the executive session, the appointment of permanent accountant 2.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Item 3A on the agenda is the appointment of a permanent accountant 2. We're asking you to approve the permanent position of accountant 2 for Loretta Furlong. She's a longtime employee here. She is on the civil service list. There is no change in the salary. We're asking you to adopt this resolution.
Moved.
Moved by Councilman Westman, second by Councilman Rossman. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0, and we'll go on to item 3B.
3B is the appointment of the permanent building inspector 2. We're asking that you approve Mr. Ian Smith, who is currently a provisional building inspector 2. We're asking you to make him the permanent building inspector. He is on the civil service list, and we're asking you to approve it as listed in the resolution. Salary is to remain the same.
I think Ian would normally be here tonight, but he's actually visiting family in Ireland.
Yes.
So we'll give him a pass.
Yeah.
Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Councilman Nunu. Discussion, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Abstention. Carries 4-0 with 1 abstention. And we'll go to general matters, the acceptance of the Justice Court audit for the year 2017. I'll call upon our Finance Director, John Lynch, to briefly discuss that with us.
Thank you. The Justice Court audit is required by the New York State Unified Justice Court System. It was completed by our independent auditing firm, BST, and the audit report has been presented to you. It shows no exceptions. And once you accept the report in your resolution, it'll be submitted to the New York State Justice Court system.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. I don't think it's in the packet, but we have it. We have the report. Any questions for Mr. Lynch? If not, I'll call for a motion.
Anything that stood out that we should be aware of?
There were no exceptions at all.
No exceptions is good news.
Yeah,
No news is
exactly.
good news. Very good. Motion by Councilman Rossman, seconded by Councilman Nunu. Discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0.
Mr. Supervisor, before we move on, audit triggers the question. Where are we with the general audits?
We actually had a brief, well, Ms. Montel had in my presence a conversation last week with our auditors who are working on the 2015 audit. If you could summarize what they told us.
They said that they were at the final phase, once again, of their review. They've committed to having it to us by the 15th. They've committed to that in the past. All I can tell you is that Mr. Lynch did advise me that whatever final paperwork that he had to submit has been submitted to them, because every time a certain period of time passes, additional letters from various firms have to be set. They're called confirms. And what was told to me is everything is now in the hands of the auditors, and they should have a draft to us, I would believe, which we'll call a draft final format, hopefully by the 15th of the month.
I will verify that during that conversation, we expressed our personal frustration, the board's frustration, the town of Ramapo's frustration with the delays, and ask that they do everything they can to expedite it.
I will say that the current auditor is on site. They were here today. I noticed that they were here today. So they're moving along with the 16 and 17 audits, so that we anticipate the schedule, which I announced at the last meeting, should be as stated.
My next question.
Yes. We're hoping to get the 16 audit done by the end of May, the 17 audit done by August.
For
and-
budget.
Right, correct. Correct.
For budget.
For
Yes.
the budget, yes, for
Yes.
next year. Very good. Thank you, Ms. Montel. Now we'll go back to purchasing. Tell us about the acceptance of an extension of a bid for a submersible grinder pump.
I'm going to tell you about that, and then I'm going to ask you indulge me for one moment after that. But I'm going to ask that you accept an extension of the bid for the submersible grinder pumps, item number 17. I'm asking you to extend that item for fleet pump and service as listed in your resolution.
Any questions? We discussed this in the workshop. Motion by Councilman Rossman, second by Deputy Supervisor Charles. Discussion. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0.
So with the privilege of the board allowing me to make a brief statement as a member of the Town of Ramapo Asset Review Committee, I'd like to read into the record the following statement and to inform the town board and the public of the following. The Town of Ramapo Asset Review Committee commonly more known now as TARC, will hold a public meeting on January 7th, 2019 at 7 p.m. at the Ramapo Town Hall. Since its inception, this committee has met on several occasions and has reviewed over 190 town-owned properties and is recommending the following specific properties be further evaluated, and that would be the Tilcon Quarry, 40 Pine Brook, the Hamlets, Ramapo Cultural Arts Center, 96 Camp Hill Road. The meeting that we're going to have on the 7th is solely to focus on these properties, and residents are encouraged to express their specific suggestions for these 5 properties, which will be distributed details at the meeting. In addition, the committee will accept in writing comments through January 17th, and the public can send those comments to TARC, T-A-R-C, @ramapo.org.
What time is this?
7 p.m.
Here?
Following the public input, the TARC committee will review all of the possible options for these 5 sites, which will include, but are not limited to, declaring them surplus, licensing or leasing agreements, or retaining them. So the supervisor created this committee in order to promote transparency and public input during this review process. Today, I'm pleased to announce that the committee is recommending to the board the following properties be retained at this time and no changes to them for consideration as listed on the prior properties. The Saddle River Pool, the Senior Center, the Challenger Center, the Rustic Brook Tennis Facility, and the Equestrian Center. We're recommending that these certain properties be considered actually for expansion, upgrade, or repair in order to increase public usage and enhance the experiences that are being currently provided to town residents. This committee will submit a report to the town board and make this report available to the public once completed. The individuals that are currently serving on this committee are the supervisor, the finance director, Mr. Lynch, Deputy Supervisor Brendel Charles, the Michelle Antosca, Tom Sullivan, myself, Janice Gittleman, and Phil Tisi. So we'd like to thank the board for allowing us to submit this brief report, and we look forward to speaking and meeting the public on the 7th to hear their recommendations into those 5 specific properties that the town will be discussing further. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Thank you,
Town
Ms.
Board.
Martell. Very good. Now we'll go to number 6, Parks and Recreation. First item is the presentation by the Friends of Harmony Hall, who I see in the audience.
We'd like to thank the town board and Supervisor Michael Specht for allowing us to speak tonight and putting us on the agenda. The Friends of Harmony Hall are seeking a long-term lease to operate at Harmony Hall. We've been operating under a memo of understanding since 2007. And with all of the excitement going on with Explore Harriman and the Trail Town Initiative and all of the economic development that's going on in the Western Ramapo and Trail Town corridor, there is many more grant opportunities, and with a long-term lease, we'll be able to secure a better and more long-lasting value to the house. We've been taking care of the house, the interior, maintaining programming, and all of this monies that we might be able to secure from a grant would give us the opportunity to expand on that. And I'd like to introduce Ken Linsner. He's the president.
Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and the rest of the board. Besides being president of Friends of Harmony Hall, I'm also Commissioner of Art and Public Places for this county. And in that regard, I will tell you that the governor has several objectives, which I'm sure you're aware of, which have to do with tourism. In fact, we will be receiving, the Friends of Harmony Hall will be receiving a tourism grant from this county on January the 22nd. That was informed today.
That's great.
And in accordance with the governor's plan, we want to act as a gateway to the Hudson Highlands. We want to provide an attractive building. We want to provide a historic building so that we can generate that tourism that really will bring us state money. And I think we all agree. The western part of this county has been neglected by the rest of the county and, frankly, by many people in the state legislature. And I think that we're changing that. And I'll be speaking next Monday about a plan for one of the properties that we discussed, or you discussed. However, we need standing in order to apply for grants, significant grants, not $3,000, $4,000 grants, but $300,000 grants. Standing can only be acquired through having an interest in the building, and that's why we were asking for a lease, a modest lease, a renewable lease, a reviewable lease for the structure so that we can say we hold the lease and therefore control the property to the extent the lease allows. And that's really all we're asking for here. We've made an offer of a dollar amount per month, which is again subject to review and changeable as we go forward. And that would be simply to allow us to use the monies that we are receiving in donations, in other ways, to improve the property instead of paying out huge amounts of lease money and then have nothing left to preserve the property. Last year we spent over $30,000 on the interior of the building, and that was money raised by us. So it is, of all the historic properties this town owns, we are by far the most successful. We've kept this building from falling into total disrepair, and we have certainly attracted the attention of both the state and the rest of this county. And I think that's really our pitch here tonight.
Very good. You guys have been great partners with the town in preserving and restoring this beautiful building. If any of my fellow board members have not had a chance to visit it, I urge that you do. It's really a fantastic sight to see. It's part of our town's history and should not be neglected by anyone. I think we met and we discussed the idea of a lease agreement, and the primary advantage would be that you would be able to, by having the lease rights to it, you'd be eligible for grants that you're not eligible for now that could be used to further restore the building. It financially benefits everybody. So I think that's something that we would definitely be interested in. If the board members have questions at this time, maybe we could discuss it. If not, what I would suggest is that we have the town attorney's office discuss with you preparing a proposed agreement, could put it on the next board agenda and move forward.
I'd just like to mention to the town board that the Friends of Harmony Hall has been working directly with the town on a one-to-one basis. Barbara, I met Barbara several years ago. I think it's an understatement to say that this is one of the most well-organized groups in terms of preserving. They do several projects at the site. And they took responsibility for helping. We own this property. It's not going anywhere. It's one of those sites where we've gone through a lot of trials and tribulations, but we had a partner in doing so. And they took initiative. They actually went out and attempted to get grants over the years. They put their hard work and labor in. There is a desire by this organization at one point. They even asked us what they could do to help us restore the facility for its historic purposes and otherwise. So I have known and met all of you multiple times. From my perspective, you go far beyond what any other group has ever done with any of our historic sites, and I think we owe you a debt of gratitude for that. And I think that we, from the financial end, the purchasing end, really appreciate the outreach to us. You made the outreach to us. We didn't come to you, and we hope that we can be supportive in any grant work that you do moving forward.
I'd just like to say that if we could maybe do this somewhat quickly, because we have an application due by March 9th to the Preservation League. And it is one that requires at least a 6-year lease.
I would hope by the end of this month we could have something in effect. Is that realistic?
Yes, very much so.
I had an opportunity several weeks ago to go up and take a look at all the development that's going on up in your part of the woods, and I've been actually inside the house myself, and I would suggest my colleagues who haven't been to go in and see the historic parts of that house. I know Mr. Welch has kept a bird's eye on it at all times. And I think it's very few properties that we do have in the Sloatsburg area that is historic. And if the governor's on board, I know we certainly are on board with him.
I think also the timing is perfect because we've seen a revitalization of that area, the western part of the town, of the village of Sloatsburg area, new businesses coming to that part of the town, as you said, increased interest in tourism. So I think this will mesh very well and be good both for the economic climate of the town, the cultural climate of the town, and hopefully be good for Harmony Hall.
Well, one last thing, and I want to say to Deputy Supervisor Charles, that the governor is on board with this, as is Senator Carlucci.
Yes, we had a
And
conversation.
yes, so from a political point of view, since I do speak sometimes with the hat of the legislature on my head,
Right.
I think this is a win-win for the town of Ramapo.
I agree. And also, too, what's the name of the little coffee shop that's there? Can you tell everybody, please?
It's the Village Blend.
The Village Blend. If you haven't been to the Village Blend, you
Definitely.
need to go there and be the patron there and support this
Local business. It's a local
little
business.
local business, but it's very quaint. It definitely goes with the neighborhood and the character which we are trying to preserve, and we want to be able to have everyone from the town come and support you. So it's right off Route 17. And not far from Harmony Hall, and there's some other good things going up that way.
There's a lot of
A lot of good
activity.
things happening, and there's
In the whole
housing
corridor.
development going on, and all the little mom and pop stores that are along the way could really use the support. We from the town support that, and yes, we're sorry, we've been remiss, but you have not been forgotten, so we're gonna get on the ball, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
And we'll go to item 6B, HVAC maintenance for the Palisades Credit Union Park.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Well, I'm asking you to accept the agreement of AMI Services for the purpose of the maintenance for the HVAC at the Palisades Credit Union Park for 2019. Total amount of the agreement, which has been budgeted for, is $17,192, made in quarterly payments. Myself and Ms. Antosca recommend that the board approve this, and it will be approved. And the supervisor, so I'm going to amend the resolution, shall be authorized to execute an agreement with AMI Services.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question on this, I guess more of a follow-up on the whole Palisades Center. We had that consultant that we had retained.
We
Was that
did, Mr.
February?
Barrett,
Was
yeah.
that February we're expecting a
I
report?
believe so. We spoke with them over the
We've
phone
had
about 2 weeks ago.
two phone
Conferences.
conferences with them. They're coming out, I believe, February or March to make a site visit. They're doing their research and data gathering. They've sent out a request for information to, I believe, Mr. Lynch and to Ms. Antosca. And once that, we will forward that to the board if the board has not received it yet. We'll forward a copy of the request for information, and then we'll request that the individuals that are from within the town that are supplying that information submit their responses as well to the town board.
Somebody recently said to me with the TAR committee, why isn't the TAR committee looking at the ballpark? And the answer is because we've hired a professional to do that. I think the ballpark is such a large undertaking that it really, we need that professional input.
The only thing I can tell you, the only thing I can tell you, Mr. Supervisor, is that there was also a rumor that we were putting up a huge housing complex on the front parking lot. That is not the intention, to the best of my knowledge, of the will of this board. So if is anybody out there that's thinking that's going to happen, it's not, to the best of my knowledge,
I'll
going
speak
to
only
happen.
for myself, but it's certainly not my intention.
Right.
So, did we get any preliminary thoughts of where their mind's going in regards to it, or that we're still too early?
Oh, too early.
No, they have to start looking
Yeah,
at
it's
it.
too early. They have to meet with the owners of the team, they have to meet with the finance department, they have to meet with stakeholders in the area to find out if anybody is interested. I think they're meeting with other teams. I mean, they're doing a lot of research. At least that's what we've been told. Did you vote on my
Not yet.
HVAC?
Is there a motion on the exciting HVAC subject by Councilman Wanunu, seconded by Councilman Rossman? Discussion, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. We have no further items on the agenda. As we close, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. I just want to say that this week, sadly, we lost a friend. We lost the Honorable Bernard Rosenfeld, who was the longtime and first and only mayor of the village of Kaiser. As we mourn the loss of Mayor Rosenfeld, I'd like to propose that we adjourn this meeting in his memory. Thank you. Second, I would ask that we cast unanimous vote for that. Thank you. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Did we adjourn?
Oh, well, that was the meeting to adjourn.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that was the motion.
In his honor.
In his memory, yeah.